Welcome back to the Wyatt Claypool Show, everyone. People have been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. The obvious disdain that President elect Donald Trump has for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And you really can't blame him. This has been a long time coming that Trump was just going to come out and just openly start mocking Trudeau because Trudeau was doing it to Trump for years. I find it endlessly fascinating. All of the Canadians who are freaking out, and this is both liberals and even some conservatives saying, I can't believe Trump would say that about our country, about our prime minister. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, guys, you didn't care when the liberals, every time Polyev and the conservatives said something conservative, they'd be like, you guys are far right, maple, mega fascists, Donald Trump 2.0. It's like, guys, we never had everyone clutching their pearls over that crazy rhetoric. It also didn't make any sense because they never actually named a Trump policy that Polyev was pushing, or they could even explain a Trump policy that was bad. Trump is a conservative, and when you actually go through his policies, they're just conservative policies. I can disagree with them here and there on certain issues of trade or foreign policy or whatever, but for the most part, he is well within the normal conservative bandwidth of ideas. But now Trudeau and like the liberal media, political establishment is sitting here upset that Canadians are also enjoying the fact that Trump is mocking Trudeau. And I'm going to get into it in a little bit here, but there's literally polling out, and I'm not mixing and matching polls to find a result I like. This is from a single poll, and it's a trend they've seen over time from Abacus data that Canadians like Donald Trump more than Trudeau. They dislike Trudeau more than Trump. Both of those things are true. It's not even just that not enough people have an opinion on Trump. People have opinions on Trump and Trudeau, and they objectively like Trump better. Before I get into the whole controversy that's going on with the recent Trump post, I just want to remind you guys, if you're not yet a subscriber, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and if you want, you can always financially support our legal fund in the description below, as well as pinned at the top of the comments. So here's the thing that Donald Trump had posted to Truth Social yesterday that set the internet ablaze because it was quite funny. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the background of this, and then also some people with some overwrought pro-Trump opinions about the whole 51st state thing. But Trump here says, it was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our in depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all. And obviously, the joke here is referring to Justin Trudeau as the governor of the great state of Canada. There's this great video, maybe I can even find it here. There's this great video of Trump while he was on his jet deciding whether or not he was going to publish a previous post, basically confirming that yes, Trump had said that if your economy can't survive without ripping America off for $100 billion a year, then maybe you should just become the 51st state. Canada should become the 51st state, and you can become the governor. And Trump is sitting on the plane, like deciding if he wants to like post this thing. It's really funny to watch him sitting there like contemplating. He's just like, just send it out, do it. As people almost around him are like, oh, I'm not sure if it's a great idea. Am I able to find it here on the fly? Well, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, though, there's all these people who are now saying, I'll go for the polling first. I want to go to the other people who are like, actually, Canada should join the U.S. The polling there actually shows that people don't want to join the U.S. So it's not like they like Trump more than Trudeau, so they want to be part of the U.S. Like, no. They just wish that Trudeau sucked at governing his country less, and that in a certain sense he was a little bit more like Trump. It doesn't mean people like Trump. In terms of, it's still a generic Canadian political opinion to just say I don't like Donald Trump. But look at this. This is from David Coletto from Abacus data showing what the approval ratings look like right now between Trump and Justin Trudeau. So here's Donald Trump in November of 2020. So in the last presidential election, he had a positive rating of 11%, neutral 11%. So very few people didn't have an opinion on him. Negative was 77%. So that is a net negative of 66%. Today, his positive has grown 15% to 25. His neutral is 14, so that's probably a lot of people. They used to dislike him, and now they don't know what to think. And negative is only 58, so he has it's gone down 19 points since then, and that would give him a net negative of like 32, which is way better than 66. So here we have Trudeau, November of 2020, positive rating 42%, neutral rating 22%, negative 35%. I guarantee a lot of the neutrals here were a lot of people who generally supported big government COVID policies while they were around, but hadn't yet soured on them. So they were kind of like didn't know what to think about Trudeau because we had this kind of like national moment wrongly, I would suggest, where we were like, we're very behind whatever the government's doing to lock us down and protect us from COVID. So that's November 2020 for Justin Trudeau. Today, his positive rating is only 23%. Donald Trump is 26. So his positive rating is 23%. He has lost 19 points. His neutral rating is 15%. There are literally 1% fewer people who are neutral on Trump than Trudeau. And negative is 61%. That is a 26% jump. This is not like, if you squint, you can kind of see how people like Trump better than Trudeau. There were some polls out there that weren't quite accurate saying, people like Donald Trump more than Trudeau, because if you see this poll of Canadians, who Canadians would vote for between Kamala Harris and Trump, 26% or 27% would vote for Trump, but Trudeau only has a 23% approval rating. I don't think that quite washes. You can't really compare those two stats. But this stat right here is just straight up. People do not like Justin Trudeau, and they like Donald Trump better. They don't love Donald Trump, but they like him better. They dislike him less. That is the funny thing. There are way more Canadians starting to be like, yeah, I stopped watching the legacy media. I stopped just assuming that because Lisa LaFlamme rolled her eyes at Donald Trump that he's a bad man. Because again, name me the actual bad policies of Donald Trump. You can say things you disagree with, but just flat out bad. It's just like you're going to destroy the U.S., all this stuff. It's not. Canadians are as anti-mass immigration as the Americans are at this point. They understand why you would have to cut the budget. 65% of Canadians think we spend way too much. I'd say that's probably a little bit higher in the U.S. But yeah, there's a lot of partisan agreement on the sort of things that Trump is pushing. Now, personality-wise, you can like him or dislike him, but politics honestly doesn't have much to do with personality. Like, it's a factor because people care about personalities of people, but it's not really a factor when it comes to success overall, other than you want people who can actually stay the course. I just want to quickly pull up on the polling on the on whether Canada should become the 51st state of the U.S. This is silly, so this is just proving it is a different poll. I believe this was Angus Reid. I'm just proving that it's not because there is this big 51st state movement. Honestly, I find it kind of obnoxious when people on social media start pushing this. Guys, Justin Trudeau sucks. Canada's not very great right now, but I would rather not just surrender as soon as we have to have a 9-year period of Trudeau and want to join the U.S. It's also not good to put all your eggs in one basket, put all the Western countries combined together so that if anything goes bad, everything goes bad. I'd rather countries be divided up or continents be divided up a little more so that we can have democratic experiments on either side of the border. I think the U.S. is doing better than Canada right now, but like I've said in previous videos, Canada at different times in history was better than the United States. Harper's Canada was way better than Barack Obama's America. Anyways, but this result, as you can see here, says to the question, would you or would you not like Canada to become the 51st state of the United States? Only 13% said yes, 82% said no, and even then, I think most of the yes people are just signaling how much they dislike Trudeau, but aren't that serious about it. Considering even the NDP, which was the most no option, only 94% of them said that they don't want to join the U.S., and I think it would be pretty difficult for us to find anyone who actually votes NDP who would want to become the 51st state. It's just because people say whatever the option is that reflects most negatively on the current government. Well, anyways, I'm going to move on to some other issues. That was just the first thing I wanted to talk about there. Again, this is something that Justin Trudeau had coming, the mockery that he is getting from both Donald Trump as well as more conservative media in the U.S., because Justin Trudeau was nasty. He belittled Trump when he was the president. After he was the president, he attacked his own opposition as being evil and far right because they are vaguely like Donald Trump, even though, again, Donald Trump is a fairly generic conservative in many ways. And now Trudeau is potentially putting Canada at risk of tariffs because of all this ridiculous behavior. I don't think that the 25% tariffs are actually going to get implemented. It would just be bad for the US too. I think Trump likes to make very big ultimatums saying, you better crack down on border crossings, especially terrorists, because more than 10 times more terrorists cross the Canadian border who are on the terror watch list than cross the Mexican border. So as long as we just start to treat that issue a little bit more carefully, I guarantee we avoid the tariffs. I don't think Trump wants to hurt his own economy through tariffs with Canada, who the U.S. Trades with disproportionately to any other country on the planet. Now, let's move on to another issue, and that is crazy activists in our government. There was a couple of hearings today on like extremism or hate or whatever, and this is Faye Johnson from the who was testifying in front of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women, who is a trans activist, and if you ever follow their rhetoric, a little bit insane. So this is something that was actually said at a committee meeting that Liberal MPs, NDP MPs are sharing because they think this stuff's good. This is fire.
I would challenge bluntly any Conservative member of Parliament on this committee to look me in the eye and say that Pierre Poilievre's comments about gender ideology are anything short of propagating conspiracy and hostility towards queer and trans people.
That's just not true at all. Gender theory being taught in the classrooms around Canada is absolutely a reality. It is a disgusting reality. So that's what SOGI 123 is. It's not the curriculum, but it's a way of doing anti-bullying type work in the classroom. Someone gets bullied for some sort of reason of their sex or whatever, or their gender expression. Now a teacher gets to go over to their box and pull out the gender theory kit and talk about gender theory to raise sensitivity in the classroom, which is just a way of propagating a pseudoscientific theory that somehow you can be a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body or somewhere in between on a spectrum. So somehow somebody can be the opposite, but there's also a spectrum which is contradictory if it's binary or not binary. But I'll let the Faye Johnson keep going here.
Those comments throw gasoline on the fire of rising hate, even as we see the freedom and rights of members of our community restricted.
Where? Tell me where. Where has your rights, where has trans people's rights been restricted in Canada? It's not happening. It's happening nowhere. Oh, because you don't get special rights? You don't get because teenagers, middle schoolers are not allowed to transition with powerful hormone blockers and whatnot that are bad for their bodies objectively. That is now restricting trans rights. These people are communists, and that's why everything that they want from the government, every sort of violation of family, which is the parent's ability to basically say no and be the arbiter of what a kid can and cannot consent for. I don't even think a parent can consent on behalf of their child to take hormone blockers, because that is a decision that you can only make as an adult yourself. But none of this is restricting rights. They're asking for privileges. Faye Johnson here is asking for privileges. And if you don't give those privileges, you're attacking our rights. This is the stupid communist game going on, trying to pretend to be oppressed because you are not elevated.
And many of us, as you have heard, terrified about the direction Canada is headed in. I would urge those same MPs to tweet their support of transgender rights, our rights to dignity, to freedom, and watch what happens next. Watch when your supporters turn on you and accuse you of supporting pedophilia, grooming, and all sorts of related filth, simply for supporting a minority's freedom. Watch as you are reprimanded by members of your leader's staff.
Is it not a little bit weird when you have a man dressed as a woman doing drag queen story hours? Is that not something that we can say is concerning? That you're not grooming children in like the illegal sense, but you're trying to open up kids to very bizarre behavior at a time in their life where they probably should not even have the option of choosing something like that. Whenever you see one of those drag kids, one of those young boys who is acting as like a young drag queen, do you really see that it's just a normal soccer dad behind that kid? Or is it usually a very specific type of parent set who is leading that kid and encouraging them into that very bizarre type of activity? That's what people have a problem with, is you are platforming people who are not generally normal role models that you want for your children. And I think that a society, a normal Western society, should have barriers for who gets to talk to children. No, the funny thing is, I guarantee you, there would be way more outcry if there was a pastor reading stories to children. If there was a Mr. Rogers type figure reading stories to children, the left would say, well, that's weird. It's a grown man reading stories to children in a room alone. That's weird. He's pushing Christo-fascist type rhetoric because he's a Christian man. These are the type of people who will attack anyone who's conservative for doing something. But if you're a bizarre person with prosthetics on, dressed up in a scantily clad manner, oh yeah, let's have that person in front of kids. That's normal.
For showing your support for transgender people. I am scared of where we are headed if anti-queer and anti-trans hate rises. I know where it leads. It leads to acts of extreme violence that result in lost lives, made possible by a tsunami of everyday acts of exclusion, discrimination, and violence that will make life a living hell for transgender and queer people on this land.
They always have this thing every year, and it's like the day of remembrance about trans violence or something like that. Trans Day of Remembrance. There's like failingly low amounts of people who are trans who are getting attacked. Are they being disproportionately attacked? I've seen stats that say it's pretty much average, maybe even below average, a little bit above average. It's hard to get stats on a population that's that small, but hasn't it been true that like a bunch of the past mass shooters in the United States have been trans? Just pointing it out that we probably should be getting a different type of care for those people if they for some reason think that people disagreeing with them should result in like violence being justified. You even have NDP MLAs. This is common. This is a few people have done this where they'll wear their shirt that says protect trans kids with like a rose and like a dagger on it. It's a little bit unhinged. And the thing is that this is very much promoted in the community. Now I just want to move on to something else. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen that Rachel Gilmore is speaking in front of a panel today about extremism in government. This is bizarre that they're having this person who is basically what I would say is a cutout for the anti-hate Canada. It's like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network and Antifa. She basically acts as the journalistic go-between for these two organizations. I had actually called her out briefly or very shortly before she was fired from Global News for having harassed a person on Twitter who was literally in a Facebook group chat that got like leaked, where they were just telling people that this is during the whole thing where James Topp was marching across Canada and he'd gotten to Ottawa and Gilmore had smeared him as like a far-right white nationalist. This one lady, Bratney on Twitter, many of you may know who Bratney is. She posts a lot of stuff about all the crazy Calistani people around Canada, but she on a Facebook profile that was under her real name, but this was all being posted in a private group, was just encouraging people to go on X and even politely disagree with Rachel Gilmore, reply to her, quote tweet her, showing that she's wrong about James Topp and this is defamatory. That was considered an offense to Rachel Gilmore. And then so she basically amplified personal information that they had dug up on Bratney. And they're like, well, some of it was on her public Facebook profile. Okay, but that's still doxing. If the person's Twitter profile is anonymous, you cannot then try and dig through reverse image searching everything they post and try and find her on Facebook and then elevate all of her details, including where she works. And then they try to harass her workplace to get her fired. After Bratney had brought this up to Gilmore publicly that you are harassing me, you are spreading doxed information, please stop. Rachel Gilmore then quote tweeted the information again, said, you mean this stuff? And then tried to make a defense that, oh, it's not actually doxing because it was public information. There's a lot of things, you can find pretty much anything publicly. Doxing is when you take something that not many people would know and you shine a giant spotlight on it. That is doxing, and it's usually for malicious intent, which this was. they were trying to get a single mother fired from her job. Really classy. But this lady was brought in as an expert about hate.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. This is obviously a very important topic, and I have some big feelings about it.
Yeah, the true professional on hatred comes in to talk about her big feelings on this really important topic. This lady obviously has been harassed based on her very professional behavior here. She's a victim.
So to kick things off, I'm sure you all remember the Freedom Convoy, yeah? Well, as part of my coverage at the time, I joined several Telegram channels and groups where organizers and supporters gathered to exchange everything from planning details to fringe conspiracy theories. And you might not have realized this, but it was actually just days after the convoy. Actually, you guys probably do know this. Just days after the
Is she on like lithium or something? This is so weird. Like she's on like Quaaludes while testifying in Parliament.
the convoy that Russia invaded Ukraine. So it was really interesting, an interesting time to be monitoring all of those Telegram channels, because all of a sudden, the ones that have been posting about the convoy and COVID, groups with tens of thousands of members primed to distrust experts, government, media, and institutions, shifted to posting about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, often claiming that Russia's invasion was actually justified because of reasons the government and the mainstream media won't tell you.
She's just so weird in this entire video. And the funny thing is that I'm one of these people, I hate all the stupid pro-Russia stuff. People don't understand how NATO works. They don't understand the lead up to the Russian-Ukraine war. I can link a video below that does a really good debunking a lot of the stuff that NATO agreed not to move 1 inch closer to Russia. That literally never happened. Gorbachev even confirmed it never happened. You know that Putin and Russia tried to join NATO a few times, and they even said several times, and it was on their own Russians' website because they had posted the video and left it up, that there was this video in an interview of Putin basically saying, yeah, I don't really care if Ukraine joins NATO. They're supposed to take care of their own security concerns as we take care of our own. It's not true. But the thing is, Gilmore is at this parliamentary hearing trying to now propose that because she finds people that you would disagree with in a Telegram group, that this is evidence of Russian interference in Canada. This is following along behind the heels of Lauren Southern speaking in front of this parliamentary committee. And while I don't agree with everything that Lauren Southern said there, generally she was right that the liberals right now are trying to very much manufacture a narrative that all the disagreement with Justin Trudeau these days, all with his woke policies, with his approach to foreign policy, it's all because of Russian disinformation. It's all because of online extremism pushed from Russia or whatever boogeyman country. And again, I don't like Russia, but they are acting like making it a boogeyman, trying to make it the progenitor of all things bad in the world. It is accurate to say that that is what they're doing. The liberals are trying to basically pretend that disagreement with liberals is actually because of online disinformation to then justify things like greater censorship on social media platforms, on YouTube, of just any Canadian content and media. It helps them push their Bill C-63 thing, which is all about combating hatred online, and that, well, there's hatred in this random Telegram group, and there probably is hatred in some random Telegram groups, but that's justification that we should now pass this absolutely insane bill that allows the government to place you under house arrest and make you wear an ankle monitor if someone reports that you might commit a hate crime, a fake crime based around being hateful. It literally, the wording they use is, it is a crime to detest somebody or somebody or something in a very extreme manner. It shouldn't be. I go online all the time and I go after weirdo anti-Semites. I go after hateful people on the left. I go after some hateful people on the right, because many of these people who are on the right, who I consider hateful, tend to actually be more of these kind of woke right collectivists, but they're just collectivists and socialists around conservative traditional things, but they're not actually classical liberals who believe in like freedom and equality, not equity, but, you know, legal equality and freedom of movement and family and all of this stuff. They're much more like big state people. They exist, but the law should never be applied to people having stupid ideas or hateful opinions. like the thing is that all of this stuff would never get applied to people on the left who are celebrating the death of that United Healthcare CEO in New York City. Their left is celebrating the Luigi guy who ended up killing him. And people like Taylor Lorenz, who is like the Rachel Gilmore of the US, was even celebrating it. Someone who used to work at the Washington Post. Even people like Rachel Gilmore and her friend Erica Iffel, who I call Black Hitler, because Erica Iffel is just a flat out racist. She's a black lady who happens to be a massive racist. That all these people are the types who like to spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Israel, who like to justify all the Israeli soccer fans being beaten in Amsterdam. They like to justify terrorism. But then, if you said something wrong in the wrong Telegram chat, Rachel's coming after you. It's absolutely wild. But all this requires me to play this stupid video because I find it funny. It is an edited video, but I just did find it funny. This is from the Pleb Reporter on X, but I just did like the edit of Trudeau over Rachel Gilmore.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is obviously a very important topic, and I have some big feelings about it.
I can't get over the fact that she even said that. You think that this would be you on your best behavior, that you're not going to try and sound like a complete, like, you're not going to try and sound like a schoolgirl here? It's bad. Here's another clip from the committee meeting. I'm not sure if this is at all interesting, so I might cut it off if this becomes uninteresting, but it's just a minute and 15.
Actually, now I give the floor to Ms. Gilmore for an opening statement of up to 5 minutes. Ms. Gilmore.
All right.
Never mind. That's the same one again. The problem with these committee meetings is sometimes it takes people a while to actually clip them up. And you could say, well, why? You're supposed to be clipping it up, but I'm deeply lazy, so I don't want to. It's more so that it just takes forever to do it. But yeah, so what else do we really have going on? Is there anything really else happening that I need to cover here? Sometimes I have to go through my... Okay, yeah, we have another one. The Liberals trying to call the Conservatives the anti-worker party. So this is Stephen McKinnon, who actually, I think around the same time last year in December, I was making fun of him for this ridiculous press conference with Mark Garrettson. But here's him trying to claim that Pierre Poilievre is the most anti-worker leader in Canadian history.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-377 and Bill C-525 will go down in history as some of the most oppressively anti-labor legislation ever passed in this Parliament. One of the very first acts of this government was to repeal both of those pieces of legislation. The author of those pieces of legislation was none other than the leader of the opposition, its chief architect, its chief salesman. He's the most anti-worker leader ever elected to this House of Commons.
Do you know what apparently makes Pierre Poilievre very anti-worker? That they had legislation that made it so that Canadians didn't have to join labor unions, or that things would actually have to be voted on by labor union members in an open process, so that a union boss cannot bully their members into just shutting up and having them misportray what the workers actually want. So if anything, it was a transparency law around labor. Also, the Liberals are I would say they're flat out anti-worker because they're just pro-union worker. They don't actually care about workers in general. They care about unionized workers. They have this new, what they call an anti-scab law that they're pushing, which is just, I can't describe it as anything other than it's like an old Italian fascist piece of legislation. It is a way of making it so a business, if a private or public sector workers strike, and this is exactly what's happening with Canada Post right now. If they strike, you cannot hire replacement workers. Even if they're just temporary, you cannot do it. You must negotiate with the union, and you cannot force them back to work. You can't force them to do anything, and you are forced to go through negotiations with them. And some people out there might say, well, that's good. We should negotiate. They should hear them out. But the problem is, when you're saying you can't hire replacement workers and you can't fire the workers, you're basically saying the union wins. The only option for the business is to have a massive pile of cash sitting around for them to use to pay to keep the lights on, to weather the storm. and so that they can maybe hold out for the workers, and then the workers have to come to negotiate or go back to work because they personally run out of money. And I even believe that they're forcing the businesses to keep paying some of these people during that time. It is just saying that the workers win. The people don't realize that fascism, and I've said this before, and I know many people on the left always freak out. Do you know what fascism means? The Italians, because it's based on an ideology called syndicalism from France. The French unions call themselves syndicates. Unions in like North America would call themselves trade unions or unions, labor union, worker unions. And then in Italy, they called their unions fascio, as bundles. We are a bundle of workers. And so fascism means basically trade unionism, syndicalism. It is a ideology that the unions and the government should run the economy. And that bill from Seamus O'Regan, who was the labor minister, I'm not sure if he stepped down yet, but at least he's declared he's not running again. It is a way to make it so that unions get to monopolize power over work, over top of the businesses that they work for. So now, if you're a private business and your workforce is not unionized yet, you will move heaven and earth to not let them, or else they basically take over the business and they tell you what's going on. And if you don't go along with it, they strike and you can't do anything about it until you're forced to meet at least some of their demands. It is authoritarianism from the mob onto the private business owner. And people, and this is the healthcare CEO thing that's going on, well, they're rich. Okay, they're the ones who started the business. They're the ones who run it. What's your problem here? The fact that you didn't do it? I always hate this kind of thing about even people on the right will kind of do this anti-elite thing where, well, that person made money, so I don't care about them. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I guess you're a genius. I guess you should be in charge of everything because apparently you know how to run a business better than this guy who was being paid because he's actually good at increasing profitability, which ends up helping workers over time. But what do I know? But yeah, I don't remember the bill's name. I made a video on it, but that's the thing. The liberals are not anti-worker in the sense that they are in favor of unionized workers, but they hate non-unionized workers. And all of these pieces of legislation, all these rules and regulations make it so that a small group of people get more and more benefits for themselves. It is a labor cartel that people who are a part of it get more money, while people who are not part of it do not. And I've had people in my comments before saying, well, you should just join a union then, because then you get more money. Well, one, I don't like seniority nonsense. Not that I'm joining a union. I'm a YouTuber and I do other contract type stuff. But but it's all based on seniority nonsense where we don't actually award merit, which I think is absolutely against the principles of classical liberalism and conservatism. But even then, if everyone joined a union, well, everything would just fall apart because everyone extracting extremely high benefits would either cause massive inflation, making your higher benefits worth nothing, or the entire system would collapse because of the extremely high cost of the extra benefits, the wages, and the mandated growth and whatnot, enforced through strike that the government will always back up. It's insane. Anyways, that's my labor rant right there. No doubt if I ever run for office, the left will pull that up and say why it's against workers. No, I am in favor of workers. I don't like how unions cram down on most workers so that a small group of lazy workers gets disproportionate benefits. That's it for me today, guys. That's it for the Wyatt Claypool show. So I always remind you guys, subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment if you want. And now I am at $34,000 I've paid into defending myself in this stupid legal case with this Chinese billionaire accusing the National Telegraph of defaming him. We did not defame him. He is basically just whining at us. And in over 3 years, he has not submitted any actual evidence to show that we defamed him or even show a logical gap in anything we said. In fact, everything our guest writer had said about this guy in an article about all these people connected with the CCP in China donating to O'Toole's leadership campaign, we based everything we pretty much said off of a long Globe and Mail investigation from Robert Fife and Stephen Chase, at least as far as it goes to the guy who's suing us. Everything we said about him was already reported on, but he didn't want to sue the Globe and Mail because they'd win easily. He assumed that he could sue me, who was 22 at the time, and I was just going to beg for forgiveness and give him a nonsense apology so that he could pretend that, see, everything people say about me is false. It's not false. He's going to lose this case, and I'm going to keep sticking through it. But if you guys can donate anything to that case, the legal fund, really helps me out because obviously I've not generated that much money from this channel and doing what I do yet. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. See you later.